Now for our roundtable with our longtime News Channel 5 political analyst, Brian Crowley. Brian, thanks as always for being with us. Fireworks indeed. We have one Floridian living down the road at Mar-a-Lago, has very definitive thoughts on who should be the next House Speaker. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, North Florida Panhandle Congressman Matt Gaetz. Your thoughts, your take?
Well, I think that what Matt Gaetz needs to do now, that he's thrown this bomb to explode the House Republicans, is he needs to run for Speaker. He should be Speaker. You know, it's one thing to sit off on the sidelines screaming at everybody else. Maybe you should take the job. Maybe you should take the responsibility. Maybe you should try to get things done. Instead, he's like a kid in high school who's always making a lot of noise in the back of the classroom, and the teacher keeps telling him to stop, and he just makes more noise. What did he accomplish for the Republican Party? Absolutely nothing.
What does it say about governing vision? You and I talk a lot about it, that 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was party discipline that was enforced. You'd have never made it to the cloakroom, much less out of it, with suggestions like what happened here. Here you have a North Florida congressman who really, in historic fashion, upset all of history, has changed the debate for now about who's in power, who's up, who's down in Washington, about what Republicans can accomplish or not. What does it say in the larger view to you? Well,
let me start with that, you know, some of the things that Matt Gaetz says about what Congress should be doing, I agree with.
Such as?
Well, you know, we shouldn't be having continuing resolutions every 30, 45 days for the budget. Mm-hmm. They should pass budget items on a more individual basis instead of these giant trillion-dollar lump sums. He's right on some of those issues, but you know, his method of doing things is just to be childish.
So you're saying he's right on some issues, but has to understand you can't get all of the cake at once.
Well, you can't, and the reality, you have to face the reality of our democratic system as our founding fathers intended it. You debate, you compromise, and you arrive at a conclusion. And in the current situation, taking his beliefs out on Kevin McCarthy, which was strictly a personal move. It had nothing to do with policy.
When you say personal, explain that. I think I know where you're going.
Well, he fought him becoming Speaker. It took 15 votes for him to become Speaker. He's been threatening to have him thrown out of office 5 minutes after he took office.
Some of his critics argue too, ethics investigation indicates that he thought McCarthy should have wiped away and was upset he didn't. Who's to say if that was in play? But
well, I would add it's very interesting the investigation, the ethics investigation that's going on is by a Republican-led committee. Mm-hmm. So it's not like Democrats are going after him. And it has a lot to do with some of the shenanigans that he's allegedly been involved with over the years. But you know, the reality of Congress right now is you have a Democratic Senate and you have a Democratic president. So you have to compromise to get things done. And that's what the Founding Fathers intended. We're not supposed to be a dictatorship.
Here's what Karl Rove, who used to work for George W. Bush when he was in the White House, then President Bush, writing in the conservative editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal, that should be noted. He said of Gaetz, quote, "The Floridian is an egotistical nihilist. He wants to burn things down, including the party to which he belongs, so that he gets more attention. He has no governing vision. He denies the reality of what's possible with a bare GOP margin in the House and Democratic control of the Senate White House," just as you said. Oh, and then throw it one more in. He said he and the rest of his gang are parasites. So Karl Rove in the conservative pages of the Journal spared no criticism. Where do we go when you have both for Democrats and Republicans? It's been argued you have uber-liberal side of the Democratic side of the House that don't get along with the moderates on the Democratic side, and you have uber-conservative, gang of 8 right now, who have the rest of the conference up in arms over this. How do we get here? Where do we go from here? You could have a speaker fight that lasts forever, and this could be a continuing drama. Yeah,
well, there was a time that members who, in either party, who, you know, were extremists who pulled, this is the worst of the political stunts that Matt Gaetz has done, but he's done others while he's been in Congress. He would have been called in and punished. They would have taken away his committee memberships. They would have given him a very small office, which is a big deal for members of Congress. People don't realize that some of those offices are about the size of a closet. And
office and placement is a huge status.
You know, they take away some of your funding. They've got ways of punishing members who get out of line. But in recent years, there's been more complacency and just letting the people who disrupt things get away with it. And now the Republican side is paying a big price for it.
Is that in part because, and we talk about it a lot, social media allows you to kind of thumb your nose at the hierarchy, at the establishment, say I can go out and build my own base on social media. I can make my own case and shout from the mountaintops, so to speak, when I have smartphone in hand, so to speak. Is there some of that, Brian? It's hard to enforce party discipline when everybody's got a megaphone all at once.
Yeah, in the Panhandle, Matt Gaetz built his own TV studio at his father's house. His father is the former Senate president in the state legislature and is about to run for the state legislature again after being out of office for a while. So, you know, not very many members of Congress go out of their way to build their own TV studio. Is it more about celebrity? Is it more about ego? Is it, you know, because the bottom line becomes after your term, in the years that you've been in Congress, what did you accomplish? What bills did you get passed? How did you help the Panhandle? How did you help Florida? How did you help the country in getting things done? That's the bottom line. On that score, does he have a gubernatorial argument yet? All the talk is that all of this is to set a prelude for him running for governor. You know, a rumor started that he was thinking about it. He's kind of dismissed that
in
rumor.
26, I should.
You know, we're a little early yet. Would he jump in and run for governor? There's nothing that Matt Gaetz could do that wouldn't surprise me.
Let me ask you, let's flip to another Floridian living down the road at Mar-a-Lago. The former president has weighed in on, hopes to put his thumb on the scale in support of Jim Jordan, the Ohio Republican. You heard Brian Mast say that right now he'd be for Jordan as speaker. And then you've also had others, and the former president hasn't completely dismissed it, saying, well, maybe you could be the speaker, or at least the interim speaker. Take all that together and give us your analysis. Well,
I was sure that they would invite you or I to become speaker for a day at least, but it's just, you know, I think that one of the things that Donald Trump is a master at is grabbing that headline. I don't think he really cares who the next speaker is. I think the fact that he was able to say, oh, I might consider being speaker for a short time, got him a headline. You know, now he's endorsing Jim Jordan, gets him a headline, and that's what it's all about for him. Final thoughts? We've got about a minute left in this segment on what else is top of mind for you right now. Well, you know, Ron DeSantis is still, you know, it seems to be in some trouble. He announced last week that they were moving about a third of their staff out of Tallahassee into Iowa. They're putting all of their chips into Iowa. Which is interesting because the last few Republicans who won Iowa did not go on and win the nomination. But he seems to have little choice at this point but to put all of his chips in Iowa. And so far, he's still way down even in Iowa. You've covered the Iowa, New Hampshire circuit many times in your political coverage career. You think it could be a tactical mistake, but he really has no other choice right now, I'm hearing you say, given what he's up against, down by way more than double digits. Look, he could pull off Iowa, right? But, you know, a week later, you've got New Hampshire. Yep. So you've got to be in place for New Hampshire. Shortly after that, you have South Carolina and Nevada. You've got to do well in all four of those states, at least come in a very close second, in order for some momentum to take you to the finish line. I think it's an interesting gamble that for now, all the chips are in Iowa 3 months from now. And right now, the former president, large and in charge right now at least. And we'll be back with Brian's closing thoughts in just a moment.